Hello, everyone, and welcome to the week ahead. This week we are in the growing light of the new moon. And I don't know about you, but I received a beautiful blessing in the light of the Sagittarius new moon. A miracle was born in my family, and we don't have a name yet, but this baby, sweet baby boy, soul that has chosen to join us is by far one of the most peaceful and loving souls I've ever encountered. So I feel very grateful. And a part of what I've been reflecting on over these last few days of um, this new moon in Sagittarius has been this Jupiter Mercury opposition. So Mercury is still retrograde, and it's not far off from this sort of midpoint of the retrograde cycle. Um, it started on November 25th, and then we have the Cazimi, which is the conjunction with the sun that marks the middle of the retrograde, and then it will conclude after, it's basically 3 weeks. But it also includes, for me, the shadow period, which is the 3 weeks before the retrograde, and the post shadow, which is the 3 weeks after the retrograde. So we're really close to this middle point of the retrograde with Mercury. And Mercury is currently in Sagittarius in Jupiter sign. And Jupiter is likewise in the middle of its retrograde cycle and in Mercury sign. So they're in what we would call mutual reception to one another. And as we have this first light of the new moon of Sagittarius, we're working through the degrees where the moon is moving through Capricorn right now. So we have this moon at 24 degrees Capricorn moving to conjoin with Venus today, and Venus moving to conjoin with Ceres, and both of them eventually moving to conjoin, all three of them actually, Moon, Venus, Ceres, moving to conjoin with Pluto. Now, if you go on my channel, I recorded a very special video dedicated to this Venus Ceres Pluto conjunction, because that marks the beginning of a new 20-year cycle with Venus and Pluto in the sign of Aquarius. It's significant. But where we are right now, as the light of the moon is growing, and we have this oppositional tension between Jupiter and Mercury that are really helping us to identify the core beliefs, the ideas, the thoughts, the perceptions, the communications, basically the issues that come in front of our own process of deconditioning, right? A part of what we're doing from Capricorn to Aquarius is a liberation process. It's a deconditioning process. I talked about it a little bit in the special report on this, because when we have Venus, it has to do with money, relationships, how we work, with our resources. We have Ceres, who is the mother goddess. She has to do with nurturing the earth and taking care of ourselves, taking care of our children, right? But the whole world, right? The earth is our place of care. It is the place where we receive care as human beings. It's how we live. The plants, the animals, everything that was created for human beings to care. And a part of what we might be struggling with at this time is where we have lacked that core stability and support and nourishment and care in our own lives. If this has been struggling financially, struggling at work, struggling in relationships, if we have kind of depended on exterior structures or exterior forms of approval, right? Exterior authorities, even spiritual teachings, right? If we are leaning on spiritual teachings, but not holding a clear understanding of how we then can live in more connection, more kindness, more embracing of our unique gifts that we are given, that we are born with, that we are created to be creative beings in this world, to be shining lights of what is the greatest potential of humanity, right? Our capacity to love, which is our greatest gift to the world, which can express itself in 10,000 ways, right? But we all have this inherent capacity to love. Now, if we have been hurt, traumatized, wounded by life, by the world, we can diminish that capacity to love. If we've been taught that something that we are or something that we do or something that we desire is wrong or bad, we can suppress our capacities to love. Our capacities to express ourselves, to be who we are, can become distorted by what the world says is a measure of success, by what the world says is how you create, you know, a, a proper name for yourself in the world, how you do, you know, good works, right? Money, status, power, all these things, which can really take us from the clear vision that calls us to live our lives as the love that we are. It can be as simple as distractions like advertisements on Instagram. It could be as big as family conditioned rules of like, this is what everyone in our family does. And if you're not doing that, then you're definitely not one of us, you know, or you're not right, or we can't love you, or we can't be in relationship with you because you don't match the beliefs or the values or the ideals or the idea of success that we have dictated. And so much of the quality of the opposition is this bridge for ourselves to cross where we are actually actualizing um, in a new way what we're here to build, what we're here to create, what we're here to do, how we're called to live, right? And that, as a part of an evolutionary process, is going to challenge the existing structures, the status quo, the what's always been done, the what's always been believed, the what's always been said or considered to be true. And this is where Sagittarius, which has this quality of the spirit of truth, it can be, um, interestingly enough, Sagittarius can be an extreme of sort of radical truth where we become so dogmatic about expressing the truth that we are ignorant to the feelings or the impact of that truth on others. It can also be this spirit of truth and optimism, vision, this visionary quality, or it can be sort of a diluted truth, which is that I think this is true, so I say it because it sounds good, but it's not actually true. It's what I think. And that's kind of the flavor of this Jupiter-Mercury opposition, where we're really having to test ourselves as to what is true inside. And sometimes what's true inside can be obscured by the beliefs that we have. Sometimes what's true inside can be obscured by the conditioning that we have that wants to please others or wants to do a good job or wants to be loved and accepted, but has gotten that in previous ways in different forms, um, not from honoring our own truth, but from suppressing it. So there's this quality of growing light, which is really helping us to see what's truly true inside of me. And, you know, Neptune rules Pisces. We have Saturn in Pisces squaring the sun today. And then we have Saturn. We have tomorrow, we have the Mercury cazimi with the sun. And then we will eventually have the moon after this whole, um, the sun will oppose Jupiter, the moon will be in Pisces with Saturn and Neptune, and Neptune is going to station direct this week. So we've got a lot of energy in the area that pertains to ultimate meaning, ultimate truth, unconditional love, right? The reality that God holds for all of us, which is all inclusive of everyone. It is not exclusive, right? Humankind is humankind. The good, the bad, and the ugly, all muddled together, right? And we are shifting in our evolution to really become that humankind through our own individuation, through becoming who we're meant to be, through the calling of our heart. And while we're in this process, right, it's a sort of, there's a T square happening here between Saturn, Jupiter, Mercury, the sun, and the moon. And this, when we get to this first quarter square here on Saturday, right? And Saturday leading into Sunday, especially, that is really calling upon us to access a deeper sense of meaning and purpose in everything, a deeper and more renewed commitment to holding a vision for ourselves and our lives and our world that is rooted in unconditional love. Now, that's hard to do sometimes in the face of questions that can't be answered or problems that haven't been resolved or deep internal emotional pain or a sense of like a crisis of, is this what I'm supposed to do, or am I doing this because other people want me to do this? Is this what I'm meant to do, or am I doing this because I believe I should do it, or because I think that this is what's expected of me? Is this what I should do because this is the creative calling of my heart? Or is this what I'm doing because I don't know? Or am I not doing anything, right? Of course, sometimes we can end up being in a state of like analysis paralysis with decisions or with, you know, um, choices. We can get kind of deluded about, but when you know that something is true, when you know that something is right inside of you, you just know. You don't, there isn't, there's more to do to protect that feeling, for example, with my son, I felt a calling for the soul like long before he was born. And the external sources in the world were telling me, no, like this, there was immense resistance. There was all the, then even in my pregnancy, there was a lot of doubt and there was a lot of fear that like maybe it wasn't a boy. I chose not to know the gender, to really leave it to the trust of God and God's will for my life. And that took an immense amount of um, capacity because many people were telling me it was a girl, and everyone had their opinions about, and even as I engaged my doubt, I could feel the ways that I feared and had to move through quite a lot in order to really come to, you know being ready to receive the truth no matter what it meant. And then, of course, when I received the truth and this beautiful confirmation of what my soul had known this whole time, it's it's a victorious moment. It's like there's a joy and an elation that I experienced when he was born that was just like overwhelming to my heart. And um, then I can see, looking back, like the whole process of like where I let doubt creep in, where I let other people's perceptions and beliefs and other people's thoughts and knowings override my own inner sense of knowing what was right and disturb my peace most of all. That's where we can give our power away, right? Is where our peace becomes disturbed by the conditions of the world. And that can happen really easily. It can be like, oh, I have this idea of like what a perfect relationship is. and then they do something that irritates you and you're like disturbed, right? The peace is disturbed in the relationship because there was this idea and then this experience that differed from it. Or I have this like vision of how, life should unfold, and then like that's not the way that it happens. Like we go through periods of suffering and darkness. When I had my first child, I just thought like I was going to get my perfect little happy family. And what unfolded after that birth was a very deeply traumatic and dark time in my life that I had no control over. And it transformed me at the deepest level. However, it was not easy to walk through. It was deeply painful. And I've been working on my own healing ever since, right? It initiated me into a journey of faith and a journey of healing and a journey of learning that I continue, like I wouldn't be an astrologer today, I think, if it wasn't for that time period. That I really became an astrologer during that initiation. So we can look back and, of course, see how these different milestones in our life create the moment that allows us to say, like, oh, this is the new seed of my growing, unique consciousness in the world. This is the new thing that I'm bringing forward in my life, whatever you're changing at this time. But sometimes we don't actually get to see what that thing is until years later. And so that's the thing to keep in mind with this Pluto Ceres Venus conjunction. Like, this is the new seed of something that's critical to humanity's evolution. Critical, absolutely critical. We cannot come together in the unity of humankind in peace and love and in harmony without this evolutionary turn. We cannot in our own lives have clear vision for ourselves of what our creative purpose is, what our unique contribution is to the world, what our individual measure of faith and unconditional love is to be in the world without these changes and without going through the kind of messy process, right? Um, Retrogrades often bring up sort of messiness, right? Where things break down, communication breaks down, things happen that are challenging or difficult. And how we respond to it is one, most of all, the most important thing. Because I often see that, like, the Mercury breakdowns that we perceive as difficulties, as challenges, are actually resolutions to things that have been long-standing issues. It's like if your car breaks down, that which was not working for a while. All of a sudden, it might seem to be not working, but it wasn't not working just in that moment. It was not working for a time. If there's a breakdown in relationship or communication, if there's a pattern, particularly with people in your life where there's deep vulnerability and a connection, where there's an attachment, where there's needs, where there are financial resources involved, and there's a breakdown in those kinds of relationships at this time. It's really resolving something which is the stifled creative power that we have, and sort of the misalignment of our unique set of beliefs and values that want to be expressed in the world in order for us to come in more fully to ourselves. So without those changes, without those irritations, without that friction, without the grief sometimes and the despair that can come up in these kind of interactions, we aren't necessarily motivated to change. Human beings become creatures of habit and we start to, you know, formulate ourselves into routines, right? If we have a pattern of not being able to receive love, we continue to replicate relationships where we are not receiving love until maybe we ask the question of, like, what do I need to do to get out of my own way so that I can receive the love that I desire, right? That's really, what do I need to do so that I can give the love that I'm here to give fully with all of myself? how do I need to be in my life so that I can creatively actualize the deepest parts of my heart in ways where I have not been able to do that because of either perceived mental, psychological, emotional, you know, philosophical boundaries, right? And when it comes to those things, mental, emotional, psychological, belief system boundaries, they're about as false as they are real, right? They're not, we have beliefs, but they change over time. Even like the boundary of like, oh, saying, don't do that. It's like, don't do what in time and space, in earth, and like in air. We don't we don't really see how mutable these things are in because they seem to be very fixed in our mind. They seem to be places where we're stuck, and this is where depression or apathy or, you know, uh, we can get into a place of like deep challenge, right? Where we're having to summon the courage to be ourselves. That's really what this week is calling us into. And summoning that courage means facing fears of rejection. It means facing people not understanding us, being misunderstood. It means facing belief systems and ideas that are rooted in war or wounding or hurt people, but then how do we as healed people start to initiate healing amongst all people, right? How do we as people who are in community to one another create a sense of unity and belonging where it's very easy to be like, oh no, we don't want you there because that disturbs my peace, right? Like I've been dealing with a situation where a group of people don't want my 2-year-old daughter there. And because she's a 2-year-old and she can often be loud or disruptive. And there's like a group of sort of like people who have said, we don't want, we don't even want to come if she's going to be there. Like, so I've, started at first by modifying, like, going, and then if she was disruptive, leaving. And then I accommodated the request by, not bringing her into the service and just like having, you know, having a babysitter watch her for the time so that I could be there, right? But until there's a meeting of the minds of like understanding how fundamentally instrumental a child is to the whole of humanity, we're going to have this attitude of irritation, like, get that away from me because this disturbs my peace, as opposed to an attitude of inclusion, like, bring this in because this is a part of me, this is a part of us, this is a part of our community, this is a part of the whole. And when we choose to exclude parts of ourselves like that, right, where we say, like, oh, I don't really like that part. I don't like when that happens inside of me, like, I want to reject that. That's also, missing the unity of our unique being, right? That's also missing the part of us that is like, well, that part is coping with something. That part is struggling with something. It's hard for us to miss um, the experience of fully loving ourselves. And so I would say in this week, there's really an invitation to that courage to fully step into being ourselves in ways that will rub up against others, and to have difficult conversations with folks where that may mean there's a not understanding, but that's okay. That actually that process itself will help us to resolve. Thinking about that Mercury retrograde example, that thing that's breaking down, which hasn't been working for some time. And the other thing that happens this week, so we have several retrograde transitions. Mars stations retrograde, and probably at some point I'll do a video on Mars and Leo, and Mars and Cancer retrograde, so that we can go through the whole cycle. And I'll specifically address it, but we have this happening this week. It stations retrograde at 6 degrees, 9 minutes, Leo, 6 degrees, 10 minutes. And here we go. And it's a 4-month process with Mars. It's a slower, longer retrograde. It'll go all the way back into Cancer. So when we get to this Pisces moon, that's when Mars stations retrograde. It's when we have the Venus Ceres Pluto conjunction. We have this growing light of the first quarter moon, which is an important phase. We have this Jupiter Sun opposition after the Mercury cazimi. We have a powerful, mutable energy and fixed energy culminating these retrogrades, which are uh, resolving dynamics from the past, resolving to evolve, right? That's what we're doing. We're resolving to evolve so that more of our heart can be brought forward into our relationships, into our communities. More of us can be cared for. More of our unique expression can be seen and heard in the world, and thus more of us can be healed, right? More of us can be healed because the more we're being ourselves, um, the more we're going to actually experience the greater healing of that unconditional love. And I think I'll leave it at that for now. We have a video that I did, the special report on that December 7th conjunction. Please definitely take a listen to that if you're interested in learning more about the way I see that longer cycle unfolding. We have a beautiful week ahead. You know, this is the new moon light time, especially. It's very important if you're tracking the lunar cycle to be using this time to put energy into the new, right? And so whatever's being resolved right now, whatever's come up from the past where it's like, oh yeah, there's that again. Wow, that old grief. Wow, that old belief idea. Wow, that old struggle, that old conditioning, that old family pattern. Oh wow, that's here. That's here. Why is it here? Why is it here? Because a deeper part of us is finally ready. We've been singing this song in our house. Hine me, here I am, here I am. This is a song that Ari wrote. Is Hine me, here I am, ready and willing to receive. And I can't wait for Ari to record this song. It's incredibly beautiful. But to me, that statement, here I am, ready to receive the blessings, right? We have the blessings of this new moon. So whatever wish, whatever vision, whatever we're holding that is a blessing to the world because simply it's coming through us, through our vision, through our calling, through our life journey. We may not receive the full awareness of that blessing until some time from now, maybe a few weeks, a few months, maybe a few years, maybe a decade, maybe two. You never know how long it takes for the truth to ripen within us and to become more of who we truly are. Can happen instantaneously for some of us, but here I am, ready and willing. And that's the statement of this week. That's the real calling for us as we go through whatever is beginning here. Just being ready and willing for the beginning to begin. And so, my friends, so grateful to you. Thank you, everyone, for all your comments on the videos. I love hearing from you. I just want to say so much. I'm so grateful for your heart, for you sharing what you have inside and what you see, what you are receiving. It just means so much to me. And also for those of you who played the guessing game, we did have a Sag new moon baby. Just absolutely beautifully timed by the universe in the ways that all souls are. So your time of birth is just as important. That's why I look at it from the perspective of the natal chart, that imprinting of the soul at that time that was chosen so beautifully. Um, I will be taking, continued time to rest and be with my newborn and starting to do sessions again in January. So if you want to book a session, you're more than welcome to do that. I've also released both my Foundations of Astrology course and my Goddess Within course on my website for study during this winter time. And then I'll have live classes where we'll be doing chart practice and integration of those teachings in January, and they begin the first 2 weeks of January. So I would love it if you want to join me for that. There's a lot of details on my website already, but certainly if you have any questions, feel free to email me. As always, give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you're new here, if you want to receive these weekly reports. And I also do special reports and free classes all the time. So that's, you can hit the notification bell and it'll let you know when I posted a new video. And leave me a heartfelt message if there's something that touched you in this video. As always, so much love, my friends, and bye for now.